Severe weather developing across the Coral Sea, multiple tropical systems, extreme heat through Western Australia, thunderstorms across Queensland and New South Wales. That is the situation we're refacing right now, right across far north Queensland. Conditions have been building all morning. Mount Carbine hit 30 degrees by 8:30 with 85% humidity. That's uncomfortable at the best of times, and it's only getting warmer as the day goes on. Up in Darwin, it's the usual story. 35 degrees with high humidity. The build-up is well underway. That wet season moisture is firmly in place across the top end. Compare that to what's happening offshore. The Coral Sea is absolutely alive with tropical activity. We've got multiple areas of low pressure spinning up, and this isn't your garden variety weather pattern. This is significant and it deserves your attention. Let me break down what's actually happening out there because there's a fair bit to unpack. Tropical low 14U is on its way out. Currently tracking southeast towards New Caledonia at quite a clip. This system S interacting with a frontal boundary, and that interaction is going to bring some serious weather to the North Island of New Zealand as we head into the weekend. Heavy rain, potential severe weather. That's their concern, not ours, but it shows you the energy in the region right now. The more important story for us is what is developing closer to home. We've got a monsoon trough strengthening across northern Queensland and far north Queensland. That's bringing widespread showers and thunderstorms to Cape York Peninsula right now. Through the Torres Strait, we're re-looking at strong winds and the potential for heavy falls throughout today. The top parts of the Coral Sea, offshore from the North Queensland coastline, are seeing a boatload of shower and thunderstorm activity. This pattern continues through this arvo and into tonight. From Cape York down through Cairns to Townsville, scattered showers and thunderstorms are on the cards. This isn't a one-day event either. This pattern persists right through the remainder of the week. Now here's where it gets interesting. We expecting an area of low pressure to begin developing late tonight into tomorrow morning, offshore from Cape York Peninsula out into the Coral Sea. This could be our next tropical cyclone for the Coral Sea region. And whilst I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is definitely heading for Queensland, we're not ruling out impacts either. Let me explain the meteorology because it's important you understand what we are dealing with. This system develops through tonight and tomorrow, but the real intensification happens tomorrow night and into Thursday. The forecast models show this low spinning itself up quite nicely through Wednesday and Thursday. By Thursday arvo into Friday, we could be looking at a full-blown tropical low, potentially reaching tropical cyclone status. This would be positioned north of the Whitsundays and the central Queensland coastline. But this system isn't in any rush. The environment it's moving into is only marginally favourable. We're still dealing with high levels of wind shear, that's the change in wind speed and direction with height, which tears tropical systems apart. There is also some dry air that could impact development. So let us not get ahead of ourselves and think this is a perfect environment for rapid intensification. It certainly isn't. That said, this system still has a red hot chance of becoming a tropical cyclone, albeit a weak one offshore from the Queensland coast. If it does develop into a cyclone, the best window for that to happen is Friday and Saturday. Here's why. By Saturday, we start to see a ridge of high pressure build just offshore from southeastern Queensland. This ridge sends in quite a lot of wind shear out of the southeast. That hostile to the system S future development. It's also likely to stall the storm. What we're looking at is this system tracking down to about the Cairns or Townsville latitude, then going into a stalling motion. It stops moving or moves very slowly because the steering flows become unfavourable. Think of it like two rivers meeting. You've got the system being pushed southeast by upper level winds, but then it meets southeasterly winds from that high pressure system. Two equal forces meeting in the middle. Flow stops. Right now, about 80% of the latest forecast model runs, plus all the official forecast models, take this storm out further into the Coral Sea towards Vanuatu and New Caledonia. That's the most likely scenario. The system hits that stalling motion this weekend, then moves east into the Coral Sea. After that, its future is very uncertain. Some models take it southeast, others have it heading up towards the Solomon Islands before potentially swinging back towards Queensland. There's significant discrepancy between the models beyond this weekend. Now, there's another possibility. The European model, which has a decent track record with tropical cyclone forecasting, is showing a potential Queensland turn. Let me explain why that makes some sense meteorologically, but why it's still unlikely. High pressure systems in the southern hemisphere rotate anti-clockwise. If this low starts interacting with that anticyclone offshore from Brisbane, it could make a turn towards the Queensland coast. This would make perfect sense if that high pressure ridge was strong, with a central pressure of 1,025 or 1,030 hectopascals. A strong ridge like that could funnel the storm towards Queensland. But here's the thing. The ridge isn't that strong. We're looking at pressures around 1,010 hectopascals. That's not a strong high pressure system. That's closer to a low pressure system in the subtropics, which means it is equally likely, actually more likely, that this system gets caught in the general steering flow with the jet stream and gets pushed out towards Vanuatu. So to recap, a Queensland turn is possible. That's why some forecast models are suggesting it, but it remains unlikely. The most probable outcome is this system tracks into the Coral Sea, well offshore from our coastline. That doesn't mean we ignore it. Weather systems like this need monitoring. Conditions can change, models can shift, but right now the data suggests this stays offshore. For those along the Queensland coast from Cairns down through Townsville to the Whitsundays, you are not going to see direct impacts from this potential cyclone. What you will see is continued shower and thunderstorm activity through this week as that monsoon trough persists. Some of those storms could be severe with strong wind gusts. Through the Torres Strait and along the Western Cape York Peninsula coastline north of Waipa, be prepared for winds between 60 and 80 kilometres per hour this arvo and tonight. That's about 30 to 40 knots for those on the water. Seas will be rough. If you've got a fishing charter booked for the end of the month off Bundaberg, keep an eye on how this pattern develops. Right now, it's too early to say definitively, but this active pattern through the Coral Sea could impact conditions offshore. Let us shift focus to the other side of the continent. Western Australia is copping extreme heat right now, and this is the real immediate concern. We've got heatwave warnings in place across large parts of WA, particularly through the Pilbara and Gascoyne regions. And these aren't poorly founded warnings. This is true heatwave conditions, and I need to explain what that actually means because there's a common misunderstanding about how we measure heat waves. We don't measure heat waves purely by daily maximum temperatures. We measure them by the average temperature between day and night, the lack of overnight relief. 45 degrees during the day isn't unusual for the Pilbara and Gascoyne at this time of year. That's pretty much business as usual. What gets you is the overnight temperatures. When you're re-looking at overnight minimums of 32 to 35 degrees Celsius, you get no break from that heat. Your body doesn't recover. Your house doesn't cool down. Air conditioners struggle. That when we see extreme to catastrophic heatwave conditions develop. If it's 45 during the day and drops to 15 overnight, who cares? Warm in the day, cool at night, you get that relief. But when it is 45 during the day and only drops to 32 overnight, which is exactly what the Pilbara region has been experiencing for the last couple of days, it's unbearable. People get stressed, dehydrated, potentially sick very quickly. That's why the heat wave warnings are in place. That's why they re-rated as extreme to catastrophic. Today, we're re-looking at maximum temperatures of 49 degrees in multiple locations, particularly around the Kennedy Ranges and up towards Marble Bar and Onslow. Tomorrow is going to be the peak, 48 to 49 degrees, potentially hitting 50 in one or two spots inland from Port Hedland. If you're re-travelling through the area, make sure your air conditioning is working properly. Carry heaps of water in case you break down. If you're in an isolated area and your vehicle gives up in these temperatures, you are in a world of trouble. If you're planning to travel on back roads and you're not confident about the condition of your vehicle, I'd recommend parking up for the day. It's just not worth it. If you get broken down on a backtrack in 50-degree heat, it could be a long time before someone comes down that road. Doesn't take long for the impacts of extreme heat to kick in. Heat stroke can develop rapidly. You need to plan ahead today. Make sure someone knows your route. Carry emergency supplies. Don't take unnecessary risks. The southwest is very hot as well, though not quite to those extremes. Perth metro area is going to see temperatures well into the 30s. Stay hydrated, apply sunscreen if you are outside, limit outdoor activity during the peak heat of the day, check on elderly neighbours and mates, look after your pets and livestock. For those in the Pilbara region hoping for an early flight home due to cyclone concerns, I've got news for you. We do have another tropical system to discuss, and this one offshore from Western Australia. Tropical low 17U west of the Kimberley coast looked for a moment like it might undergo something called centre relocation. That meteorological jargon for when a storm loses its low-level centre and replaces it with a different low-level centre. It's common in the Atlantic, less so in the Australian region. As it turns out, this system is so disorganised, so far gone, that it can even manage that. Looking at the wind observations this morning, you'd think the low pressure centre is still north of Kalamburu and Truscott, based on the flow pattern. But the nearest convection, the actual thunderstorm activity, is well away from there. The system is struggling. Tropical cyclone development chances for this system have been quashed as a result. It's a very disorganised and messy system, however. And there is always a however with tropical weather. This system does have a bit of a fighting chance. It is likely to redevelop its centre offshore from the Kimberley coastline tomorrow, arvo and evening, well offshore. Then it's expected to track southeast and make landfall on the Kimberley coast. Conditions become marginally more favourable through Wednesday and Thursday, particularly through Thursday. We may see brief development of this system Thursday and Friday. Because it is going to be a small system, it could intensify quite quickly. And because conditions are expected to be relatively favourable at that time, we may actually see a tropical cyclone out of this after all. Wind shear is currently hammering this system from the northeast. But as we head into Thursday and Friday, that wind shear drops significantly. That is good news for development, potentially bad news for the Kimberley coast. The system is forecast to essentially start from scratch, developing a new low-level centre before moving southeast. For those between Curry Bay and Derby up to about Wyndham or maybe north of Wyndham, including Berkeley, River Lodge, Kalamburu and the Indigenous communities along the northern Kimberley coastline, I do recommend making some preparations for a potential tropical cyclone impact. Now, I want to be clear. At this point, serious preparations are probably overkill. The chance is still relatively low, but the potential is there for this system to quickly intensify and catch you off guard. Better to make minor preparations now for a Category 1, potentially Category 2 tropical cyclone than to be caught unprepared if conditions shift. If your home is well built for cyclone impacts, you are probably fine. But if you are in a caravan or less substantial structure, think about relocating to solid shelter if this system develops. Secure loose items around the property. Stock up on essentials. Have your emergency kit ready. The chance is low, but it's definitely there. And at this time of year, during cyclone season, things can change rapidly. Keep an eye on updates from the Bureau of Meteorology over the next few days. Let me address the thunderstorm situation across Queensland and New South Wales because that is affecting areas today and tonight. Scattered showers and thunderstorms are forecast through Cape York Peninsula this arvo, extending down into central and central western Queensland. Some of these storms may be severe with strong wind gusts. We're talking 60 to 80 kilometres per hour in some locations. The western Cape York Peninsula coastline and Torres Strait are most at risk for the stronger wind gusts. If you in these areas, secure anything that could blow around. Bring in outdoor furniture. Check that sheds and outbuildings are properly secured. For central Queensland and parts of northern New South Wales, there is potential for isolated severe thunderstorms as well. Nothing widespread, but where storms do develop, they could pack a punch. Heavy rainfall, strong winds, small hail are all possible. This is typical wet season stuff for northern Queensland. You've seen this pattern before. But it doesn't hurt to be prepared. If you hear thunder, you're close enough to be struck by lightning. Get inside, don to shelter under trees, stay away from windows during severe storms. Flash flooding is possible in areas that cop heavy rainfall in a short period. If it's flooded, forget it. Never drive through floodwater. You can to judge the depth, you can to judge the current, and you can to judge what S underneath. Every year we lose people who think they can make it through. Don to be one of them. Let me touch on the longer term pattern, because understanding what S driving all this helps you make sense of the forecast. We're in an active tropical phase right now. That monsoon trough across northern Australia is pumping moisture into the region. Sea surface temperatures in the Coral Sea are warm enough to support tropical development. Upper level winds are creating pockets of favourable conditions for systems to spin up. This is normal for January. This is cyclone season. We expect this kind of activity. What's interesting this year is how active the Coral Sea has become. Multiple systems developing in relatively quick succession. That S worth monitoring. The heat through Western Australia is being driven by a strong high pressure system over the interior. That S dragging hot air from the inland desert regions across the northwest. Combined with clear skies and strong sunshine, you get these extreme temperatures building. That pattern shifts towards the end of the week as a trough moves through. Temperatures will come down, though they'll still be warm. The overnight minimums should improve, giving people that much needed relief. For the eastern states, this active pattern persists through at least the rest of this week. Showers and storms will be a daily occurrence through far north Queensland. Brisbane and the southeast corner stay mostly dry, though there's potential for the odd storm to clip coastal areas. New South Wales sees scattered storm activity through inland and northern areas. Sydney and the coast stay mainly dry. Temperatures across the southeast are warm but not extreme. Mid to high 20s for most areas, low 30s inland. Victoria stays dry and warm. Melbourne S looking at temperatures in the high 20s to low 30s through the week. Good weather for most, though fire danger will be a consideration with dry conditions persisting. South Australia sees some relief from recent dry conditions with a chance of showers moving through later this week. Not huge rainfall totals, but enough to dampen things down a bit. Adelaide Metro stays mostly dry. Tasmania gets a cold change towards the end of the week. Temperatures drop, particularly overnight. Morning frost is possible across elevated areas and the north. If you're in alpine areas, watch for icy conditions on roads early morning. Northern Territory stays hot and humid. That is standard for the build-up. Darwin and surrounds continue to see afternoon storms as that monsoon moisture feeds in. These storms can be intense but are usually short-lived. Let me summarise the key points you need to know. Coral Sea tropical activity is significant but most likely stays offshore from Queensland. Continue to monitor updates, but direct impacts to the coast remain unlikely at this stage. Showers and storms persist through far north Queensland all week. Torres Strait and Western Cape York see strong winds today and tonight. Western Australia faces extreme heat through today and tomorrow, particularly Pilbara and Gascoyne regions. If you re-travelling, take serious precautions. Don T, underestimate 50-degree heat. Make sure someone knows your route and expected arrival times. Kimberley coast has potential for tropical cyclone development later this week. Low probability but worth monitoring. Make minor preparations if you worry in the potential impact zone between Curry Bay and Wyndham. Scattered severe thunderstorms possible across parts of Queensland and New South Wales today and tonight. Secure loose items. Don T, take unnecessary risks in severe weather. This is an active weather pattern. Things can change, models can shift, new systems can develop. The key is staying informed without getting worked up about every model run that shows something different. You've been through cyclone seasons before. You know how this works. Sometimes systems develop and track exactly as forecast. Sometimes they fall apart. Sometimes they do something completely unexpected. That S, tropical weather. The Bureau of Meteorology is doing an excellent job monitoring these systems. Check their website for official warnings and watches. They've got the full resources and expertise to track these developments. For those in affected areas, don't panic, but don't be complacent either. Have your emergency kit ready. Know your evacuation routes. Make sure your insurance is up to date. Check on elderly neighbours and mates who might need help preparing. If you're in a bushfire-prone area in the southern states, this warm, dry weather means fire danger ratings temperatures will be elevated. Know your bushfire plan. On days of high or extreme fire danger, reconsider any outdoor burning. On total fire ban days, no fires whatsoever. Stay safe out there. Use common sense. Look after each other. And keep an eye on official weather sources for updates as these systems develop. That's the situation as it stands. Multiple tropical systems in the Coral Sea with development potential. Extreme heat across Western Australia requiring serious caution. Active thunderstorm pattern across northern areas. And the general expectation that this pattern persists through at least the end of this week. I'll be monitoring these developments closely. Conditions can change rapidly with tropical systems, so it's worth checking back for updates over the next few days. But right now, the data suggests most of this activity stays offshore or affects remote areas rather than population centres. Don T, let the multiple systems fool you into thinking disaster is imminent. This is active tropical weather. This is what January looks like across northern Australia. Be prepared, stay informed,